ADHD Rewired, episode 439. This is the podcast for those of us with really good intentions and a slightly wandering attention. I'm Eric Tivers. I'm a licensed clinical social worker by training and a coach by design. I'm your host, and I have ADHD. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community. We are wired for connection, and you are not alone. Go to ADHDrewired.com to learn how you can join us in our free and secret Facebook group. Get additional resources for every episode, including links to any resources we mention on today's show. You can support us on Patreon, sign up for our email newsletter. You can request podcast postcards to distribute to your clients and support groups. Learn all about our award-winning coaching and accountability groups. You can co-work with us in our Adult Study Hall virtual membership community. You can do all of these things by going to our website at ADHDrewired.com. We know that starting is the hardest part, so let's get started. Welcome back to another episode of ADHD Rewired. Today's guest is Adam Coutts. Adam has taught meditation for 20 years through his weekly sitting groups, 25-hour classes, corporate webinars, and one-on-one coaching. He has been meditating daily for 30 years and lived in monasteries in America and Asia. He has also been exploring his own ADHD for the past 10 years and leading a mindfulness meditation for ADHD course for the last 4 years. Welcome to the podcast, Adam.
Great. I appreciate it, Eric.
So you have gone deep into meditation.
Yes, sir.
What was the spark that got you into that?
Well, I didn't realize it at the time, but ADHD. Once I started learning about ADHD, I came up with a phrase for myself, SEM. Some of my friends are familiar with this: sleep, exercise, and meditation.
Okay.
I mean, of course, Wellbutrin has helped a lot too, but with my ADHD recovery and towards being more productive and more socially grounded when I get anxious. But SEM are the big things that I can naturalistically do. Get enough sleep, have a regular sleep schedule, big struggle for me. Exercise regularly, of course, dopamine, serotonin, norepinephrine, and meditate. My two sort of junior members of the club are get good nutritious food, vegetables, etc., and authentic connection with people where I really feel seen and where I see them and where we drop in on a deep level. So those are the naturalistic cures. And of course, I've been drawn to those things in my life without even realizing why when I was younger.
All right, so I'm going to have to ask you about a couple of things here first.
Yeah, please. Okay.
So, language is really important in how we both cognitively and emotionally respond to things. And there were a couple of words that you actually just used that that were a little bit triggering, I think.
Okay.
And so I wanted to sort of address those right out of the gate because I imagine
Spidey sense.
Yep.
All
right. So one is you said to recover from ADHD. Then you also used the word cure.
Oh, I see. Okay.
Tell me about that, because I look at I don't think we recover from ADHD. I think we manage ADHD.
Yeah. Fair enough. Yeah, no, I agree. I just, when I was younger, I did 12-step programs. So sometimes that language just pops into my head. I think there have been times in my life where my ADHD behavior has been relatively out of control and times where I've been relatively locked in. When I assess my own ADHD, I think of it as having two core symptoms. One is lack of motivation when I have big open chunks of time to get stuff done, unless I have something to help me, like interpersonal accountability. And the other is less of a filter for information in and out. So sometimes in my adult life, those two symptoms have created more mischief for me and sometimes less. So when I say recover or cure, I just mean, those things are my life is going along relatively well vis-a-vis those challenges.
Okay. And then the other is when we say all natural, because I think that's a really big marketing term that sort of prize on people who are afraid to try medication as part of how to manage ADHD, because all natural means absolutely nothing. It is a marketing term because cyanide is all natural and that'll kill you. Mm-hmm. So when you say all natural, what are you meaning?
Well, I guess just to weigh into the controversy, I got a psychology degree when I was younger, and I remember I had strong opinions about psychiatric medications. I had people close to me that were on them, but I thought this is a way society dopes up people when society really needs to change and be more humanistic. And, there's people who feel that way. And I think I was reluctant to try medication. And when I first started using, I've tried a few that are really not for me, but Wellbutrin has made a huge difference for me in life. I mean, I tell people it's not light and day, but it gives me a fighting chance often. There's many people in my life now who are struggling with a lot of challenges. And I say, I think it'd be helpful for you to try medication. It really can make a big difference. And yeah, I mean, I do take the point of view now. It's like a person with, vision issues putting on glasses, and there's no real moral failing to it. So yeah, that's my current perspective on it. I think though, sometimes I have this fear of society going Mad Max. And I think if that happened, I still could exercise. And in fact, probably I would do quite a bit of exercise. I still could meditate. I don't know where I'd get my Wellbutrin. So, I make a bifurcation there for what it's worth.
Okay. All right. Because, I just think that language is important, and and how we sort of talk about treatments. It's, on some hand, there are people who say, all natural, and what they mean is non-medication approaches.
Yeah.
And, it's a very kind of triggering topic for a lot of people in the ADHD community, because there is so much medication shaming.
I hear you. Well, to be blunt, I think you're more tapped into these debates than I am. So, you're at the center of a lot of ADHD community and discussions, whereas I'm not. So it's good to be informed about what words work best for people in terms of these things. I would also just say, my medication use, I don't know where to put it in the SEM, nutrition, authentic connection sort of visualization or concept. So that's another reason why I kind of consider it outside. Is it above them? Is it along with SEM? Like, I'm not sure where to put it. So that's another reason why I just make a distinction between them.
I was just thinking that there's, like biology, and then I was thinking, is there anything that starts with a D? Because then you could have BDSEM.
Yeah, I could. I have at times. So, maybe I shouldn't admit this, but I have taught courses on the mindfulness of BDSM in the past, and I don't usually tell that to my friends in the Dharma world, in the meditation world. But I told one of my senior teachers, he's like, "That's great. There's a lot of opening to pain in that world, and just being with things the way they are and being present." I'm like, "Oh, well, glad you approve. I thought you wouldn't." So
I heard a story on NPR not that long ago.
Is that okay that I shared that?
Absolutely. I kind of, anytime I hear someone say, "I don't know if I should really share this," but I become all ears, right? It's like, well, what is he going to say? So thanks for sharing that.
Sure.
I heard a story on NPR a while back about they were exploring sort of the neurobiology of the connection between pain and sexual pleasure, and a lot of what they were saying was that it helps people become more in touch with their body, which is all about what mindfulness is about being being in touch with what's actually happening now.
Yeah, I have a few friends that are and I've watched them in their, I can't believe I'm sharing this, but I've watched them in their scene and been like, I think this is your way to not be so heady. I think there's other ways. I can tell you, having done meditation retreats. As I told you, it's my birthday today, and the woman I went to my high school prom with, her birthday was the day before mine, so we always send messages. And I was visiting her about 10 years after graduating high school, and she's like, "Oh, you do these long meditation retreats. That's so amazing. That's really, that sounds so luscious and rich, and you're so lucky." I'm like, it's actually really hard work. You're sitting there, and it's like, I don't usually sit cross-legged, so my knees are in agony, my back's in agony. I sit for 10 hours, my mind is wandering all over the place, and I just have to open to it and allow it and fully experience it and let it all flow through me. And the pain flows through me, and it actually becomes some richness, kind of a spiritual experience. And she said, "That sounds like BDSM bottoming." And I was like, "No, it's totally different, because one's really, I had a different attitude back then. One's really like gross and degenerate, and the other one's holy, and no, they're totally different." And years later, I'm like, "No, I think there's some similarities there." I teach a classic technique. It goes back thousands of years. One of my favorite techniques to teach, which is moment by moment noticing if one's experience is pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, or mixed. The ancient Indian word is Vedana. It's often translated in the Dharma world into English as feeling tone. So every couple seconds, you notice my thinking, my emotions, the sounds I hear. If you meditate with your eyes open, an optional thing. The sights I see, the feelings in my body, just the totality of it. Is it pleasant, unpleasant, neutral, or mixed? And the point of the technique is, if you do that enough, you start to realize how much the mind grabs onto pleasant and pushes away unpleasant. So when I teach this technique, I tell people, Mixed is a little bit of a cop-out. Try and see if you can put things in the pleasant or unpleasant. But there are two types of mixed I often notice. One is like I'm trying to notice and something really pleasant is happening, like music outside the door or a really fun thought that would usually I'd enjoy, but right now I'm trying to meditate, so it feels kind of sickly sweet, like stop it. That's one kind of mixed, like conventional pleasant combined with like mindfulness.
Like, I
just isn't
like it, I
jiving
just
with
don't
it.
want it right now.
Yeah, exactly. The other type of mixed is this would be pretty unpleasant usually, but like right now, because I'm meditating, it's actually pretty fun. Like it's actually pretty interesting. So I think that dovetails with the same concept too, that when we open meditatively, all sorts of differences from our usual experience can be found.
I a while back, I had this kind of I think I wrote a blog about this, and it was about is ADHD mind wandering syndrome.
Uh-huh.
And I know when we first talked, you had talked about how I think part of your meditation practice is, and how you help others, is how to sort of capture a wandering mind.
Yeah.
So I would love I'd love to hear a little bit about how you do that, and how just the practice of meditation can actually help keep the station on one channel versus it being on auto tune, and every 7 seconds it just keeps going to something else.
Yeah, I love that question. Let's see. For me, with my own internal experience of ADHD, like I said, the first symptom is lack of motivation to do the important things, even though I know they're important. The second big symptom is lack of filter. So filter out would mean saying blunt things that I think I'm being fun and hurt people's feelings, or after 10 minutes of monologuing, I'm like, are you still with me? Is this okay? So that's lack of filter out. Lack of filter in is like, for example, just all sorts of random thoughts popping into the mind. Just we have colorful minds. We have a lot of creative minds because our mind just constantly popping off with new things. One thing that's weird about ADHD is how stimulants help us sleep. It's my experience, at least, because they calm down that just random thoughts popping up, which is what often creates insomnia for me. So the random wandering mind. I think traditionally the way I was taught in meditation in monasteries, there's two ways to look at meditation. There's concentration and insight. This is sort of, speaking bluntly, in the Buddhist world, when meditation is explored, these are the two big sides of meditation. Concentration is you pick something that you choose to pay attention to, classically the breath, but it could be the soles of your feet as you walk. It could be a repeated phrase, may I be happy and healthy, may I be happy and healthy, may I be happy and healthy. And you choose, I'm going to pay attention to this thing, and you divide reality into two different mutually exclusive areas. What, for the next 20 minutes, I'm going to pay attention to, and then everything else. That's concentration meditation. And your mind will wander, whether you have ADHD or not. 10,000 times it wanders, 10,000 times, and one times gently and patiently, but insistently you bring it back. That builds the muscle of concentration and the ability to have the mind, I'm going to pay attention to something, and the mind is relatively stable and steady and rooted.
Can I just kind of echo something?
Yeah, sure, please.
Because I think it's important because this is what you've been living this for decades, right?
Yeah.
And I know that one of the, and I'm sure you hear this often, but one of the most common responses when you're talking to people with ADHD is like, I can't meditate, my mind's going. Right. And just that idea that it is not about clearing the mind or just having a single thought. It's about noticing when the mind wanders and go, whoops, come on back.
Yeah. So the other type of insight, the other type of meditation insight is just letting things be as they are and allowing them to be however they are. Typically in the Dharma world, that's seen as second to concentration. You learn how to stabilize the mind and then use that powerful stabilization to look at whatever and just let it, for example, the wandering mind, let it play. Just let the monkey wander around and just notice it like a parent walking a couple feet behind a toddler as it just sort of goes wherever it goes. And I think in both cases, concentration and insight, a busy mind is not a detriment. In the second case, a busy mind, just notice it being busy. Just don't go unconscious, but just stay aware. Notice the rising and falling of the mind, like waves on the ocean. And the second one, if you did it 10 hours a day in the Himalayan cave for, the next 10 years, you might get to places where your mind really is still and free of thoughts. Like the metaphor is like a still forest lake with no ripple on it. But humans can also bench press 1,000 pounds. That's not something just about anyone can do. You have to train for years. And the fact that someone can do that doesn't mean we should expect to do it the first time we lift weights, or even would want to do it given our other priorities in life. I think, when we concentrate the mind, I want to concentrate it on the breath, that more rigorous first type of meditation. it's great to have all sorts of distractions. It teaches you so much about how your mind works, what's on your subconscious mind. I've heard from many people that, yeah, I can't meditate. I'm just full of thoughts. And I say, great,
I think what we should do real quick is take a quick break. And when we come back, let's explore some actual practical techniques.
Sounds good.
All right. We will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from ARC. ARC is ADHD Rewired Coaching. Learn more about that at coachingrewired.com. What would it be worth to you to be able to work alongside other adults with ADHD and have a space designed for you so you can develop skills and strategies to reduce your overwhelm and take control of your life? What if you could offer and receive accountability to engage with your priorities and to create your to-do lists that make sense for your ADHD brain? And on those days where the ADHD wins, what if you could have a team and a community there to help you figure out what you need to do to get a fresh start tomorrow?
This group is like a scaffolding for us to move from intention to action. And the scaffolding's above the muck and the stories and everything else. If you have a scaffolding in a building, you're renovating it. You could be renovating or renewing it. And that building is us. For me, the building project is trying to open the windows, increase the size of the windows. And when the size of the windows increased, more light gets in. And just as importantly, more of our light gets out.
This is what it feels like to join this group. In a world of many kinds of boats, I have tried to be on a crew with specific skills that were never useful. I would try to help, but either slow down the boat, added loads of work for myself or someone else. Then I joined this group and finally on a boat like I was meant to be. We are in sync. We understand so much of the mechanics of this ADHD boat.
This group of strangers, we got together and we came into this thing thinking we were our own special kind of broken. But we grew together, uplifted each other, and saw how we're not broken and we're not alone. And we built this beautiful community of support. I saw this group and I knew this was my place.
I think that group is not about finding the support or the techniques to grind through the tasks and the difficulties that you've had in life, but it's giving you the push to relax into it, to be gentle with yourself, experiment, tweak, laugh, cry, and just accept and be more open.
If you're thinking about joining this group, I've never liked the idea for myself of any kind of group coaching or therapy or support groups. I've always figured my difficulties were so severe that I needed the full attention of an individual coach or therapist, which I've done, and that I would not be able to get enough out of a group. However, group coaching through ARC has been more beneficial than I possibly could have imagined. It's been amazing being surrounded by people, including the coach, who all have ADHD.
If this sounds like the community that will help you get unstuck, then go to coachingrewired.com to get registered for our next registration event this Thursday, July 28th. The sooner you register, the more you will save. People who signed up at last week's kickoff event got to save $500 on group with Kat or Kristen. You could still save $400 when you join us this week at this week's registration event on Thursday, July 28th. Wait until August 4th, you can still save $300. Wait till August 11th, $200. The week following, $100. And then August 25th and beyond, admission is full price. So don't wait. And in case you didn't know, we are offering 2 evening groups this season. So check the website for details. Go to coachingrewired.com for all the details and most importantly, to get on our fall interest list. Registration is by invitation only, so don't miss your chance to save on our fall season of coaching groups. Deadlines to submit all pre-registration submissions is at 11:59 p.m. Central Time, the day before our registration event. This is the coaching community built for adults with ADHD by adults with ADHD, where it's your space to experiment with all the different tools, tips, and tricks that everyone has to offer. We can do hard things, but we don't have to do them in the hardest way possible. Learn more and get invited by adding your name to our fall interest list at coachingrewired.com. We can't wait to meet you. That's coachingrewired.com. All right, we are back with Adam Coutts. All right, Adam, so we were talking about right before the break, just sort of that experience and some of the resistance that people with ADHD often express. And one of the funny things that have seen when I lead meditation in my coaching groups is sometimes I'll give a prompt to give your brain permission to wander. And then at the end of it, once it's over, I'll ask people, how many of you were able to better focus on your breath once I gave you permission for your mind to wander? Most of the people in the group say, like,
nice.
And it's sort of like, yeah, it's because we all kind of, well, not all of us, a lot of us have this sort of that like internal oppositionality. And so it's like, oh, I can do this now, so I don't have to do this now. So it's sort of like permission relaxes the mind, I think.
Yeah, awesome. I like it.
All right, let's talk techniques.
Sounds good. I'd like to say something about what you said about permission.
Yeah.
My main teacher, Shinzen Young, who to my eyes is the world expert on meditation, the technology of meditation. Sort of how meditation works is a technical art.
Okay.
He's a very mystical, spiritual teacher. He's very grounded in science. He works with a lot of neuroscientists too. And he had raging ADHD. I could tell you stories from his life. Before he started meditating, he was just a really messy kid. Messy of mind and action, and went to Japan, and the rest is history. He's this world famous teacher now. And I take my definition of the phrase mindfulness from him. And he defines it as concentration, clarity, and equanimity. Concentration meaning, like I said before, like we develop in meditation as much as we can. It's a long process. A mind that is more stable and collected. I choose to pay attention to something, and then, it more or less stays there. Takes a long time to cultivate. Concentration. Clarity means you're aware of what you're aware of. When you're thinking, you're aware you're thinking. When you're feeling an emotion, you're aware you're feeling an emotion. That's one part of clarity. The other part of clarity, though, is having the attention really sink into the details of whatever it is you're aware of. You hear a sound, you really get into the richness of the sound, the texture of it. You have a more sensitized, subtle mind. I think that part is crucial for ADHD people. You tell a person, pay attention to the breath. The breath is boring, Inhale, exhale, space in between where not much is happening. Inhale. If you say, though, if a person can manage to really catch the wave and get in there and get intimate with the breath and really notice the subtle texture of how it feels, oh man, it's really sexy. There's a whole symphony of stuff happening in there. So, it goes with the sounds we hear, with anything we pay attention to meditatively. That clarity aspect can make it so much more interesting. And then equanimity is, I don't know how familiar people are with that word. It's a Latin word. It means even-keeledness. So that means, the classic, let things be as they are. Don't get reactive, live your life on the outside as best you can, but let the energy flow with no friction.
I often tell people that when they're meditating, if they have an itch, it's a gift, and just notice it and don't scratch it. Just notice it and explore it.
Shinzen says a meditator is someone that itches 5 times before scratching, which when I was younger, I was like that is so great. And now I realize a lot of the things he says are ADHD specific, and that one is. But so I think of synonyms for equanimity, and one I think of is friendliness, allowing, acceptance, patience. I think those are crucial aspects to meditation, because some beginners will just get in there and hate themselves, and I'm not doing it right, and I need to clear my mind, and this is so hard, and I feel all sorts of agitation, and I shouldn't, and they just get into a big struggle. And I try and emphasize when I lead meditations, friendliness, ease up in the saddle. You don't have to do it perfectly. If you do it really imperfectly and have a lot of thoughts and you're friendly, it's a better meditation than doing it a little technically more perfect, touching the breath more and really grinding on it.
All right. So what are some of the kind of specific techniques that you think would be helpful for listeners to get introduced to? And maybe ones that are maybe not just like the super basic ones, but some ones that you think are maybe a little bit more unique, or you have your own take on it.
Well, I will say the most basic one, of course, is breath. That's the most common meditative technique worldwide. You can find it in all major world religions. A lot of psychotherapists use it now. That used to be the first technique I taught people for 15 years. I think more recently I've switched to sound. And sometimes I play wind chime sounds for people. Sometimes just open the window and hear the birds and the children playing in the wind, or the cars. I think sound is a really great thing to focus on and really stabilize the mind on, because there's so much texture to it often. You can really get recursive, getting intimate with sound and really noticing, there's one sound that arises. Okay, other sounds, just holding space for it and hearing the whole music of your environment. It's easier, especially for a mind that craves stimulation, than the breath that's a little more simple and austere. I think the process of stabilization, I just led a sound meditation yesterday, can be a little frightening for some people, because if you really do it, the listener disappears and there's just the play of sound. But that's such a rich space to get in if you can cultivate getting that place. For me, I think the most important meditation, for me, meditation has often come down to, I realize this, just feeling the body. And there's so many other dimensions to it, but that's the most important part it's had for me. For me, a big part of ADHD is just inner agitation. Like, I haven't done enough today, social anxiety, just like having a hard time feeling at ease. And just noticing where I feel tension and just feeling it, not trying to relax it, it just relaxes itself. I do it during work meetings, I do it when I drive places, and I definitely do it on my meditation cushion. Invaluable technique, and so many blessings from that. I talked earlier about when your mind is thinking, just watching the waves rising and falling without trying to interfere with it. In Shinzen's system, there's two types of thinking. What he calls see-in, see-out meaning real-time seeing. See-in is like the pictures, the movies, the slideshows that go through the mind. You kind of notice, is there a picture, a slideshow, or a movie, or is my mind blank? Notice what the state is right now and just let the pictures go. It's a relatively intermediate technique, but if you can catch it and you can really get into it, there's a lot of freedom of just, instead of being trapped in a broom closet with your thoughts, you're in a huge cathedral, a huge basilica with your thoughts, just so much space, and there's a lot more ease with them. And the other one is verbal, conversational, analytical thinking, and just noticing the rise and fall of that. Are there conversations, evaluations, contemplations? Do I have thoughts of that type in my mind? Just watching them rise and fall, you sort of bring your attention to the space between your ears, or wherever it is you would notice inner conversation. Sort of hang out there, notice the quiet, enjoy the quiet. And when a thought arises, you just notice it. It's hard to stay conscious with that, but again, when you can do it, there's so much more space around the thinking process, and it can rage like a crazy storm, or it can be really calm. Both are fine because you've given it a lot of space. You're just watching it. Again, a more intermediate technique, but one that can have a lot of value for ADHD people.
It's funny when I often, when I'm doing a meditation, I often will find myself almost laughing during meditation because I'm just observing my mind and without judging it, and just almost noticing the joyfulness of absurdity of like all the stuff that's going on all at the same time. Like those moments where you can actually, like in a snapshot, actually track the 40 thoughts that you're actually just having all at one time. And it's just like, oh my gosh, like there's so much going on up there, right?
Yeah,
like I often find myself just naturally sort of smiling while I'm meditating. And I think part of it is I'm just like, it's almost this like childlike wonderment while I'm doing it. I'm just observing what's happening without trying to attach anything to it.
Nice.
So I just wanted to share that.
I appreciate that. I mean, I think that ties into what I was saying earlier about friendliness, and you were saying about permission. I sometimes tell people, if you start a meditation practice, you will realize all sorts of really ugly things about your mind and your personality and your motivations, just how manipulative and dishonest the mind can be. The human mind did not evolve to be morally upright, it evolved to survive. And I say to people, I invite you to make a deal with yourself, just like, 12-step person doing their moral inventory. You're going to be honest here and really see your mind the way it is, and you're going to be gentle. You're going to be friendly. You're opening up these doors to shine beneficent love from your heart, not to condemn what you notice. So we if we're going to go spelunking into the subconscious, we got to make a deal to have a smile on our face when we notice just all the stuff the mind does, and not be like, you got to shape up. This is unacceptable. This doesn't fit in with my self-image of who I want myself to be.
So let's talk about some more techniques, including, you said you use a lot of mantras.
Yeah.
Which is not something that I've explored too much in my own meditation practice.
Well, a mantra can be something in a language we don't speak. The classic Buddhist mantra, Om Mani Padme Hum. I think Tina Turner has been a member of Nichiren, so she's probably said Namamida Butsu like over and over again in her mind subconsciously. You might not know that about Tina Turner.
And what does that mean?
Hail to Amida Buddha. Amida Buddha is actually a kind of Christ-like figure. Like this world is fallen and he lives in a pure bliss land. And if you really let him into your heart and believe in him, when he comes to the world, he'll bring you to the bliss land. That's the basic idea. You have to say, Hail to Amida Buddha, Nam Amida Butsu.
When he's say he's doing a mantra in another language, as someone who was raised Jewish, I learned to read Hebrew.
Yeah.
I have no idea what the hell I'm reading. which is like the dumbest waste of education. Like, it's like, really, like, it would have been way more useful to actually teach us what we're reading. And so I always had this like feeling of being like growing up in like synagogue where they're saying these prayers. I'm like, I have no idea. We're just saying sounds that have zero meaning to me, which always just aggravated me.
Yeah. But as an aside, Shinzen is ancestrally Jewish, and he has taught, insight meditation in Israel using Kabbalistic words, but basically Buddhist concepts. And he says it translates perfectly. But, when I teach a long class on mantra, repeated phrases, I will give options of stuff in Hebrew because maybe someone who's ancestrally Jewish, that feels heartfelt. And you got to think if something's lasted 2,000 years as a religious mantra, there's some sort of balance and beauty to the phrase, whether you understand it or not. So that's one form of mantra. Om Mani Padme Hum, whatever, something that you just, I like the sound of it. And it means something. It could be translated, but not in the language you speak. The other is in the language you speak. Ideally, it's something that has a meaning. My favorite mantra is, may I be happy and healthy. May I be friendly and patient with myself. I use that mantra all the time.
What about that makes it
especially when I put something up? Oh, it just calms me. It's self-soothing. It brings me back to compassion. A lot in life, I try and whip the donkey. I try and be like, you messed up. Like, you got to shape up. And that just makes me more tight and want to do my job less and be nice to people less. And when I really sink into, may I be friendly and patient with myself, I calm down. I'm actually more productive, more of a smile on my face with the people around me. So we could also call it affirmation practice. And it's, a psychotherapist would say, I want you to look in the mirror and say for 5 minutes, may I be friendly and patient with myself. A 12-step sponsor would say, I want you to sit there for 5 minutes each morning. I live with ease sober. And you just let the word saturate. It doesn't have to be something mystical, schmystical, like a religious thing. Just whatever you're working on in life, whatever a person's working on that's meaningful to them. And then it's a double winner. It's like you get to focus the mind on the repeated phrase. You get to sort of like do the meditative aspect of that. Oh, I have a thought. It's distracting me. Come back to the repeated phrase. I have a pain in my leg. Okay, let that be. Just let it be in the background. Come back to the really absorbing into the repeated phrase. So great concentration meditation. But then you have the added benefit of like whatever it is a person's working on in life and want to reaffirm with the affirmation. That really soaks in. And usually negativity pops up like, why should I be friendly with myself? I haven't gotten anything done today. Or like, this is just some sort of hokum. And like, no, you really need to get to that spreadsheet thing. And just being bigger than the negativity, I'm like, okay, I'm friendly with you too. You're trying to help me in life. I get it. Like anything a person would do with the inner critic, and just come back to, may I be friendly and patient with myself. You are authorized to come up with your own affirmation, your own mantra, whatever you really feels good to you. And just the practice is sit there and repeat it. You can do it out loud if your mind is really wandering. You can do it inside your head if you're riding a bus. Say it over and over again. You concentrate on it. Great meditative work. And you open yourself to the meaning of it. Great personal growth work.
So you can come up with your own mantra, or you can tune in right after the break where Adam's going to share a great list of mantras that he found somewhere on the internet.
Okay, I better come up with a list now.
We will be right back. Support for ADHD Rewired comes from Adult Study Hall, our virtual co-working and body doubling community at adultstudyhall.com. Do you have paperwork you dread doing? Do you need to clean out your inbox or clean out your garage? Or are you putting off writing your resume, working on a paper, or cleaning out your fridge? You can join us at adultstudyhall.com, where you can get more done from joining either our facilitated sessions that we call ASH Plus or Adult Study Hall Plus, or our 24/7 drop-in room. If you do best with a little bit of guidance and conversation, join one of our ASH Plus sessions. We offer those for cleaning and decluttering, writing, creative work, and your most dreaded tasks. If you like to work at your own pace but don't want to work alone, then join our 24/7 drop-in room, or ASH 24/7. That's adultstudyhall.com, where you can jump into our 24/7 room or join any of our facilitated sessions so you can get unstuck and start crossing your toughest to-dos off your list. It's free for the first week to try, and only $19.99 a month after that. Come give it a try. This just might be the body doubling co-working community you didn't even know you needed. Adult Study Hall is only $19.99 a month, and it's free to try for the first week. Join us at adultstudyhall.com. That's adultstudyhall.com. Get more from ADHD Rewired when you become a patron over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. I'd like to welcome our newest patron this week, Kristen E., who recently joined our Patreon community. Welcome and thank you for your support. Perks start at just $5 a month, where you can get ad-free episodes of this show. All you do is sign up for the private RSS feed on Patreon once you become a member, and you will automatically get an ad-free version of this podcast in your podcast player. And if you become a patron at the $25 a month level, you can join me today for our monthly coaching call. That's at 1 p.m. Pacific, 4 Eastern, and that is for our $25 a month level patrons. And we are once again this month going to be focusing on your to-do lists. If $10 a month is more in your budget, but you don't want to miss on all the tips and tricks that we share each month, then consider becoming a patron at $10 a month, where you can get the audio recording of our monthly coaching calls and ad-free episodes of this show. And if you sign up or switch to our annual plan, you could save 8%, which comes out to about getting 1 month free. I am so grateful for the support of our Patreon community. If it's in the budget for you right now, consider becoming a patron over at ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. A huge thank you to all of our listeners who support us on Patreon. And thank you all of our listeners for tuning in every week. If you're listening, but you're not a patron yet, and you find value in this show, consider supporting our work by becoming a patron by going to ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. That's ADHDrewired.com/Patreon. And thanks. All right, we are back with Adam Coutts. So you found this list of really good affirmations.
My favorite is, may I be happy and healthy.
Mhm.
May I be friendly and patient with myself. That one has just been, I don't want to say lifesaver, but it's been really great for me. I think times where I've been grieving in life, and meditation can be so great for grieving. I heard someone say recently, there's no way to quicken our path through grieving except maybe meditation, just really feeling it. So everything changes, everything ends. There's times where I've been grieving and just said that for an hour out loud or inside my head, and it really helps me let go of whatever I'm clinging onto. There's a lot of sort of Western Dharma mantras, aware and allowing, right now, I'm here, I'm present, I'm ready. You can come up with your own. I like the one, open to it, allow it, be with it. That's one I've used a lot in monasteries when I felt a lot of pain. And again, there's tons of religious mantras. I'm looking right here. Shema Yisrael, hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God. Haya Hova Vehyeh, I was, I am, and I will be. In Sufi Islam, I'm the point of sacrificial fire held within the fiery will of all. There's the Jesus prayer, Lord Jesus Christ, Son of God, have mercy on me, a sinner. And then there's tons of Hindu and Buddhist ones. So if a person is a religious person and those, Om being the simplest one, and they like those sort of things, you can find them. But again, it's perfectly fine to come up with something really secular that's just meaningful for the person and work that into their life.
It seems like the one of the values of sort of identifying a reoccurring sort of statement for yourself is that you don't have to come up with how you're going to meditate. Like if you have your phrase, it's just like, all right, this is the phrase I use. Yeah. If a person finds something that really works for them. But meditation, just like ADHD, it's a constant negotiation. It's a constant. I like to say that about meditation posture, where we try and be more upright than we are in our usual life. As people get older, as they run and don't stretch, or they do a lot of stretching, our body's ability to sit still changes. So it's just a constant sort of investigation. So it is with meditation techniques. So it is with our managing our ADHD. There's no one answer we can find in life, and then that's it. There's often just constant learning, constant re-exploring, something like that. What are some other practical techniques that we can, our listeners can try to try at home? I think one great one is something that Shinzen calls focus out, which is focusing on real-time seeing, real-time hearing, and your body as it touches your environment. And then what you're not paying attention to is inner thinking, either visual or conversational, or emotions as that gets pulled to you. It takes some work to sort of get the hang of it and keep coming back to real-time external experience. I think that's a great technique to do while driving. I would not recommend that a person meditate while driving unless they've done a lot of time in a chair or cushion. You don't want to have your first kind of like swirls of color and disorientations happen behind a wheel. But if you're a regular driver, really meditatively driving, what does Russell Barkley say? Driving with that untreated ADHD can be like driving drunk.
We have many times the rate of car accidents as the neurotypical population. So
if you're
really
listening to this in the car right now and you were like text messaging someone, put your phone down and put your eyes on the road.
Nice. I appreciate the stewardship, the care there. It's another great technique to do while raking leaves or doing dishes, folding laundry. Just bring your attention to what the sights you're seeing, the feel of the dishes, what sort of clanking can you hear, etc. It's a great technique to do if you're meditating in a park or on a bus. You want to be externally aware of what, someone could lunge at, a strange person could lunge at you. You want to have your eyes open and be hearing. You don't want to be absorbed into the breath. So that's a useful technique for mindfulness in daily life. Focus out.
So when you said doing dishes, I will sometimes do dishes with my eyes closed, and I'm just using my sense of my tactile sense of touch. Walking places with my eyes closed. Wow. I think part of it is just sort of like there's a little bit of an adrenaline to it, but then there's also like it forces you to really kind of be present with your surroundings and listen in a way that is very intentional. Yeah. And I find that doing so also allows me to almost hear my body better. Wow. Does that make sense?
All right. I'm learning from you about meditation here. I mean, I knew before coming on that you have a sophisticated practice and understanding of it. So
an extremely inconsistent practice, though, at that.
All right. Well, sounds pretty normal. Sounds about right.
All right. So what are some of these phrases that you wanted to share with us?
Do we have time to talk about the balance thing? I'm going to talk about the balance
thing. If I said no, then everyone will be listening. Like, well, what's the balance thing? So yeah, talk about the balance thing.
I'm going to say the balance thing, then the affirmations from Reddit. I've listened to a lot of ADHD podcasts, and sometimes some of the guests say Adhd and meditation. I've heard this said. An ADHD person shouldn't meditate. It's too hard for us. Right. And obviously, I have an alternative point of view with that. I think that's like telling a sickly person, oh, you shouldn't exercise. It's really hard for you. Well, a sickly person is going to get all the more value from exercise. And then I've heard other people say, well, don't ever do concentration meditation. That's just not for an ADHD person. Do the insight stuff where you can let your mind go and just let it be. Don't ever try and stabilize your attention on something. I disagree. I think that it's harder for an ADHD person to concentrate in meditation, but it's doable. So I think there's a lot of ways that meditation can be made more difficult and ways it can be made more easy. You can either turn up the fire for a hotter cooking experience, or you can turn down the fire. One way to make it hotter is to sit for longer. One way to make it a little bit more easeful is sit for shorter. Start with 1 minute, 2 minutes, the classic advice. Once you get agitated, get up. Sit for longer means once you get agitated, stick with it. That's the goal. You can sit in a chair or a seat. That's going to make it a little more easeful. You can pace back and forth. Totally great way to meditate. So you can turn up the heat, sit still. You can turn down the heat, pace back and forth. You can turn up the heat by doing concentration. Not insight. It's a little easier to do a guided meditation. Put on a phone app or stream a YouTube. It's harder to do it by yourself with no words in your ears to call you back to remind you what you're doing. It's a little easier to sit with a group. You can do online groups. There's lots of those, even for free. So I don't think there's a right or wrong to either end of those spectrums. They both have their place. But I think it's helpful, especially for an ADHD person, to be like, you can always turn it down. Sit with a group, do a guided meditation, walk back and forth. Or turn it up, sit for longer, try and concentrate the mind, sit still, do it just on your own without the words in your ears. So with an ADHD person, they probably need to turn it down a little bit more, but it's finding a place of balance. When you lift weights, you want to go a little bit beyond your comfort zone, beyond your current level of strength. You don't want to try and go way beyond, and you don't want to waste your time and just do reps with something that's half your growth edge. So that's my talk about finding balance.
It's good. So a lot of experimentation, exploration, and grace, it sounds like.
Yeah, I like it. So I'm going to read something I found on Reddit a few years ago. I think the poster was named ADHD PI, and I've had it printed out in front of me for years now. This was his benediction to other ADHD people. Even if others give up on you, don't ever give up on yourself. Don't complain. Don't use your condition as an excuse, even if it's a legitimate one. Accept full responsibility for your life. Fuck social media. Don't compare yourself to others, especially those you don't know. Even when in trouble, keep your shoulders back and your head high. Don't beat yourself up if you fail to do something. You take responsibility for success and failure. As long as you gave your best, it's okay. You're a human being exactly as others. You're equal to everyone, even when you're alone or misunderstood. Accept your condition. This is the hand you were dealt. You can't change the hand, but you can play it wisely. Deep down, you know you're not a lazy piece of shit. You know that you want to control your life and be responsible as everyone else seems to be. It's harder, but it's possible. Today equals tomorrow. Yesterday equals something close to zero. And be your own best friend. I've had that in front of me for a few years now, ever since I found it on the ADHD board on Reddit, and I like it.
What's your favorite one out of all of those?
Be your own best friend.
Well, Adam, thank you so much for sharing everything that you have with us. Your website, intromeditation.com.
That's correct.
And I know that you said that you are leading some mindfulness meditation groups for adults with ADHD. You said it's by donation.
Yeah. I'm inspired. That's how my teachers play. I have a day job, so it enables me to have the good fortune to be able to offer my teachings by donation. I have a regular sitting group. It's not ADHD focused, but of course all meditation is. And, the way I teach comes from an ADHD informed perspective. And that's Tuesdays, 7 p.m. to 8 p.m. Pacific time. And then first Sundays of every month, 4 p.m. to 5 p.m. Pacific time. I do have a ADHD specific class. I think it'll be about 8 hours. It'll be coming up in a few months. If someone goes to intromeditation.com and looks under upcoming courses, they'll find information about that. And there's a pop-up. If anyone goes to my website, sign up for my email list to find out about upcoming courses and classes. I don't send out emails that often, but people are invited to do that too.
Adam Coutts, thank you so much for spending the time with us. We appreciate it.
Thanks a lot. I really appreciate the opportunity to share with your audience. You're a really great interviewer and a warm presence, and so it's been a pleasure.
This is Eric Tivers. Thank you for listening, and congratulations for making it to the end. ADHD Rewired is more than just a podcast. We are a community focused on learning, growing, and connection. The website is adhdrewired.com. You can find time-stamped summaries and additional resources for each episode. Apply to join our free and secret Facebook community. Learn more about our award-winning intensive online video-based coaching and accountability groups. Join the Adult Study Hall virtual co-working membership community. Find all the other podcasts on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. Sign up for my email newsletter to get exclusive content that you won't hear anywhere else. And use the search tool to find episodes on specific topics. You can do all of this at adhdrewired.com. While you're there, click on the Patreon button. If you are a regular listener, consider making a monthly contribution by becoming a patron. If you are able to financially support my work, it would mean a lot. This show is free to you, the listener, but it's not free to produce. Plus, patrons get cool perks like ad-free episodes and access to recordings of coaching calls, and $25 a month patrons can join me once a month for a group coaching call. You can follow me on Twitter at Eric Tivers. You can like our Facebook page at facebook.com/ADHD Rewired. If you're a coach, therapist, or related professional, connect with me on LinkedIn at linkedin.com/Eric Tivers. Subscribe to ADHD Rewired on YouTube to see selective interviews and other videos I've made. Podcasts change lives. You can make a difference in someone's life by spreading the word about this podcast. Mention it in your online communities on Facebook, Twitter, Reddit, or wherever you hang out online. And be sure to share it with your friends, family, your therapists, your coaches, doctors, siblings, parents. And if you, your coach, therapist, doctor, or ADHD support group leader would like a pack of podcast postcards to hand out, you can request those at the website, adhdrewired.com. If you're a member of CHAD, ADA, or any other ADHD support group, please be sure to tell them about this show and all of the shows on the ADHD Rewired Podcast Network. You can even show them how to download it on their phone. And if you really loved this particular episode, please hit share on your podcast player. I'm only one person, and I do count on you to help spread this message. One of the biggest things that you can do to support this podcast and help other people discover it is to leave an honest rating and review on Apple Podcasts or any other app that supports reviews. And don't forget to hit subscribe so new episodes are automatically pushed to your favorite podcast app. Looking for more ways to listen and learn? Get a free audiobook and a 30-day free trial at Audible by going to audibletrial.com/ADHD Rewired. Here is my list of must-listen-to audiobooks updated July 2021. Nonviolent Communication by Marshall Rosenberg. Attached by Amir Levin and Rachel Heller. Atomic Habits by James Clear. The 5 Dysfunctions of a Team by Patrick Lencioni. Crucial Conversations by Carrie Patterson. The Coaching Habit by Michael Stainer. The Body Keeps Score by Bessel van der Kolk. Rest by Alex Sujong Kim Pang. The 5-Second Rule by Mel Robbins. Make It Stick. The Science of Successful Learning by Peter Brown. The Productivity Project by Chris Bailey. Meditation for Fidgety Skeptics by Dan Harris. Change Your Questions, Change Your Life by Marilee G. Adams. I always recommend to my coaches and admin that they read that book. The One Thing by Gary Keller, a required reading for all of our coaching group members. Procrastinate on Purpose by Rory Baden. The 4 Tendencies by Gretchen Rubin. The Art of Asking by Amanda Palmer. And if you're looking for something a little bit more magical, I have fallen in love with the Harry Potter series, and the narrator, Jim Dale, is amazing. And of course, if you haven't yet boarded the Brene Brown bus, all of her stuff is great, starting with Gifts of Imperfection, Daring Greatly, Rising Strong, and The Power of Vulnerability. And if you're an entrepreneur or leader, be sure to check out her book, Dare to Lead. Do you have something that you would like to share? Click on the podcast tab at ADHD Rewired. Click the button to be a guest at the top of the page and schedule a 15-minute interview. This is Eric Tivers, reminding you to keep learning, growing, and connecting. Self-care is not selfish. No matter what you get done or don't get done, you are still enough. And no matter how hard it feels, we can do hard things. And we don't need to do them in the hardest way possible. Thanks for listening. I'll catch you next week.